Here's how to lucid dream the easy way. No complicated techniques, no need to get up in the middle of the night, and you don't even need to be particularly aware. So, how do you do it? This video is definitely going to ruffle a few feathers. But there's a problem at the heart of lucid dreaming, a paradox, if you will, that nobody seems to be able to answer. But when you understand it, it makes lucid dreaming much easier. Here's the problem, see if you can answer it. If lucid dreaming requires some heightened state of awareness to be more aware than the average person, as many of the spiritual lucid dreaming teachers will suggest, how come, in that case, is it easier for children to lucid dream? And furthermore, how come there are so many stupid people who can lucid dream? Seriously, when you look online or here on YouTube and see some of the lucid dreaming channels, you sometimes wonder if these people can even tie their own shoelaces, so how come they're having lucid dreams? And this can be a little bit disheartening. If you're a semi-intelligent person with more than a handful of brain cells, you might think to yourself, well, I'm quite smart. Why am I struggling with lucid dreams and these massive plebs over here are claiming to have them every single night? Are they lying? The surprising answer is no, they're probably not lying. They might be exaggerating a little bit, but here's the thing. You don't actually need to be an intelligent person to have lucid dreams. In fact, being intelligent might be a hindrance. Why is that? So at the moment there are two puzzles on the screen. One is incredibly simple, and one is incredibly complicated. Which one is going to be easier to solve? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? The simple puzzle is going to be easy to solve. Now, the same is true when it comes to lucid dreaming. If you're an incredibly simple person, say a young child or a slightly dim-witted individual, the puzzle of your brain, the puzzle of your life is incredibly simplistic. So adding lucidity to that puzzle isn't hard because it's not very complex. It's exactly the same as the puzzles on the screen. If you're an intelligent person, your subconscious mind is also more intelligent, more complicated. Therefore, you've got a much bigger maze, a labyrinth to work through. Here's another way to look at it. Imagine two different people. One has a really simple lifestyle. They wake up in the morning, they have breakfast, they laze around, they have lunch, they laze around, they have dinner, they watch some films, they laze around a bit more, and go to bed. Now, the other person has a much more complicated life. They wake up in the morning, they have to run 5 companies that they're the CEO of, they're just about to get married and they're planning all of the arrangements for that. They also have a popular YouTube channel, they're writing a book, etc, etc, etc. Their day is filled with complexity. If you asked one of those two people to do a simple chore for you, like go and buy some milk, which one is going to have the most time to remember to do that? Well, obviously it's going to be the person with the simple life, because there's no distractions in their life. What this boils down to is that lucid dreaming itself is not a badge of honor. It doesn't mean that you're more intelligent. It doesn't mean that you're more aware. It doesn't mean that you've reached some spiritual high ground. It really depends on what kind of person you are, how complicated your life is, as to whether your achievement with lucid dreaming means anything. And it's really obvious when you think about it. Imagine a child whose life is very simple, whose mind is very simple, who's having regular lucid dreams. Their only problem in life is which toy they're going to be bought next. We can't say that they are more intelligent or more aware than a psychology lecturer who has an incredibly complicated life and a very intelligent mind that struggles with lucid dreaming because their mind is complex and because their life is complex. But if that psychology lecturer manages to have a lucid dream, they've solved a much more complex problem. So if you're ever wondering why there are these brain-dead suggestions for lucid dreaming out there with lots of people shouting about how good they are, well, think of it this way. If you have a simple puzzle and someone gives you a simple answer to that puzzle, it's going to work. So the people who find simple lucid dreaming techniques effective are, in essence, simple people. See, I told you this was going to be a controversial video, but that's what it boils down to. If your brain is really simple, a simple answer is going to solve the problem. But if you're a complex, intelligent individual, then that's not going to cut it. So how on earth is this going to help you to lucid dream? How does this fit the original premise of the video, that this is an easy way to lucid dream? Well, I'm certainly not saying to have easy lucid dreams, you need to be dumb. Obviously not, because you can't help what kind of intelligence level you have. But there is something we can learn from the stupid lucid dreaming techniques and the simple approach to lucid dreaming that is effective for everyone. So let's take a look at one of the most stupid lucid dreaming techniques and backtrack on why it works. So here it is. This is probably the dumbest lucid dreaming technique in existence, and it's simply this. Repeat to yourself over and over again, I will lucid dream tonight. Now, there's no reason on this lovely planet why that should work. It's absolutely brain dead. But if you're a very simple individual with very little going on upstairs, simply repeating that over and over again is going to follow you into the dream world. The person doing it believes it's going to work, and because they've got very few distractions, very little else going on, eventually they're going to repeat it in a dream and notice that they're dreaming because, once again, they've got very little going on to distract them. That's why it works. But there was one word hidden in there, which is the secret behind all of this. And the secret is they believed it was going to work. It was ingrained into their unconscious and subconscious processing, their beliefs about the world. And because they're a simplistic individual, they had no reason to question it. But you, as someone with more than a handful of brain cells, already has 1,000 criticisms of that approach. Why would it work? It's moronic. It really doesn't make any sense, because your brain is more complicated and you've started to distract yourself from the main focus to recognize when you're dreaming. Behind this very simplistic and frankly brain-dead approach to lucid dreaming is a psychological principle that transcends IQ or the complexity of your life and underpins the way the human mind works. It's basically hijacking some basic principles of human psychology and using them to achieve lucid dreams. It boils down to this. What is the core of you? What is your core identity, your belief about who you are in the world? Because that comes before all other thinking. For someone with a very simple mind or a child, they don't have a well-developed sense of self, so they can easily inject an idea such as, I'm someone who finds lucid dreaming easy, and it will manifest into their reality because that's all they've got going on. But for someone who is complicated, someone who is older with a much more detail-orientated life, you've got to get beyond all of the complexity down to the core of who you are, what you believe yourself to be. Humans are storytellers. This platform alone proves that. What is YouTube but a collection of stories? We're addicted to stories. Throughout history, pretty much everything humans have done has been based on some form of story. Now, ignoring whatever your own religious belief is, because that's going to offend you if you think in those terms, but think of every religion other than your own. What is it other than a story that someone believes in? Wars have been fought over those stories. It's bonkers just how story-orientated human beings are. Here's a really simple example of just how story-addicted the human mind is, how fundamental it is to our thinking. Now imagine I were to give you a list of 4 random items: a dog, milk, Elon Musk, and a mobile phone. Now by tomorrow, this time tomorrow, you will have completely forgotten that list, but if I present them to you in a different format, you will remember them. Here's the story. There is a dog who is the king of the universe with his big giant crown. He's addicted to drinking milk. All he wants to do is drink milk, and he surrounds himself with cows. One day, he's so desperate for the milk that he squeezes the udder of a cow so firmly that it squirts milk into the cosmos. It hits a rocket flying past, it crashes down in front of the dog. Elon Musk crawls out of the spacecraft and shouts at the dog, "What were you doing? I'm going to call my lawyer." And he grabs his mobile phone. Now, that story has got a far higher chance of staying in your mind than the random list of 4 items. Our brains are obsessed with stories. And you are a story you tell yourself. The story you tell yourself about yourself is different from all the other people you know who have also created a story of who you are. We are, in essence, a living story. Who you are is a metacognitive ghost that lives at the base of all your thinking. You self-reflect back to that story you tell yourself about yourself before you make decisions based on what's going on around you. For a simple person with a simple self-story, they can inject a new line of text into that story incredibly easily. Imagine you've written a one-page story, it's easy to edit. But if you've written a novel, it's very difficult to change any part of that story without changing all of it. So the way to make lucid dreaming easier is to edit your fundamental self-story, to change how you think about the world on a fundamental level. It's the same as the simple, stupid technique of I will lucid dream tonight, but you need to find a story you can inject into your self-story that works for you. So I know this is all sounding a bit complex. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an example of what I do, and then you can do a version of it for yourself. Don't just copy it. Don't just cut and paste, because it won't work that way. You need to analyze how you think and your beliefs about the world and then do something similar. So I'm a relatively scientific, critical thinking kind of individual. I don't have any major religious beliefs. So I need to assess my reality, what I am, based on what I genuinely believe to be true, what I know to be true. And so the story I tell myself about me is that I'm an interdimensional traveler that has lost their memory. They're suffering from amnesia, essentially. And I can justify that story, and it's an exciting sci-fi kind of story, by remembering my own birth. I popped into existence on this planet, and I can't remember what came before, but I know that I traveled into this dimension. I also know that I travel into other dimensions at night. When I dream, I'm popping into new worlds, also having lost my memory. So what does this interdimensional amnesiac do? What I have to do is to constantly self-reflect, to engage metacognition. Okay, I know that I am this thing. I know that I pop between different realities and I forget that I've done it, so I need to stop doing that. So whenever I'm going about my daily life, that is one of the core stories I tell myself about me as an individual. Now, if you're a Buddhist, you might change up that story. You might think, well, I am a Buddha without knowing it, so I'm going to constantly self-reflect to remind myself that I'm in the now. Or if you're a Christian, you might go, well, I'm one of God's creations, so I'm going to bring myself into the moment to self-reflect and enjoy the wonders that God has laid before me and establish whether it's a dream he has given me or the world itself. It's that kind of fundamental self-belief, the core of who you are, that matters. And I know this all sounds a bit bonkers, interdimensional amnesiacs. What on earth is he talking about? Well, for me, that is a version of reality that I can buy into. It is a version of self-identity that I can believe it matches how I think about the world. And by doing that, when I come back to myself, as I go through my day, however many distractions there are, my self-identity is always there at the core of me. It is always there to remind myself, okay, interdimensional traveler, are you dreaming right now? So it's much less, you're far less likely to get distracted when your core sense of self is a lucid dreamer by default, or at least engaging in behaviors that result in lucid dreams. Or in less insane sounding language, what you're essentially doing is editing your self-identity to align with the direction that will lead to lucidity. Your self-identity is upstream of virtually every other thought you have. So if you can make that revolve and orbit around the concept of lucidity and awareness of the now, that will, by default, lead to lucidity and lead to a lack of distraction. But you need to tailor that for your personal beliefs about self and reality. And frankly, it's a really fun and beneficial practice because it forces you to go to the core of who you are and work out what makes you tick. So let's say, for example, you're someone who's really into Sudoku. That's your main thing. You love solving puzzles. Well, what are you then? You are someone who solves puzzles. That is your default behavior. What is lucid dreaming? What is recognizing that you're dreaming other than a puzzle that needs to be solved? There are many ways you can reframe the lucid dreaming journey to fit who you are as an individual. That is the key. What makes you tick, and how can you rewrite your story to be aligned in the direction of lucidity? And when you start thinking in these terms, all the other lucid dreaming techniques and practices make a lot more sense, become a lot more enjoyable and easy, because now they align with your self-identity, the core of who you are. And if you've enjoyed this video, you may enjoy one of the videos on the screen right now. I'll see you there.